dealing with seemingly contradictory concepts in Kabbalistic teachings, whether from the Zohar, from the Eitz Chaim, the pre-Eitz Chaim, and so on. So, we're speaking about the virtue of prayer over everything else. That there's something about prayer in our day and age that happens to be where the Arizal says, where the sparks are hidden, and that we need to bring refinement. Even though Torah study, which we're doing right now, is equal to all of the mitzvahs, but there's something unique about prayer. So that's what we started discussing. Now we're going to go into some Kabbalistic ideas over here that we'll explain. So in the Eitz Chaim it says the commandments, the positive commandments, the 248 of them, they're rooted in the 5 attributes of kindness, of Zohar in Atzilus. For those who understand what that means. So there's 5 dimensions to kindness. Kindness, as it's found in Zohar, Zohar is all of the emotions, all 6 emotions. So in the world of Atzilus, which is the world of emanation, not a created world, right? Which means that what it really means is that every positive commandment serves as a container to receive an expression of kindly attributes that are divine, that we call forth every time we do a mitzvah, right? And likewise, there's 365 prohibitions. They're rooted in the 5 attributes of severity of Zohar in Atzilus. Now, severity sounds like a severe word. Gvura means strength. Strength means holding back. Who's a strong person? Someone who can hold back, bite their tongue, so to speak. That's a strong person. So here we're talking about that the divine contraction and limitation, that a light of God should not enter into a place of klipa, of negativity. And that's why it's prohibited, right? So, for a Jew to eat not kosher, by, God forbid, eating non-kosher, what that means is you're taking the divine light of God, that He animates everything at all times, and you're bringing it into klipa, into a negative place, right? And that's why it's a prohibition. On the other hand, the 248 positive commandments, right, to do, like study Torah we're doing now, to put on tefillin, lighting Shabbos candles, and whatever, they elicit a kindly attribute of the divine, a flow of that divinity every time we do a mitzvah. Okay? Now, so that's how mitzvahs, the 613, you have 248 and 365 equal 613. But elsewhere it says, in the Zohar, it says differently. That the 613 commandments are actually derived from one path that's called lavnunis, which means pristine whiteness, right? Which is referring to supernal keser, crown. If you want more, and in an intimate and personal setting, together with like-minded people who seek to grow and become their truest self, click the link below in the description and join the Tanya Rabbi community, TRC. Now, so in Keser, so again, this is some kind of deep Kabbalistic stuff, and I'm going to try to make it as understandable as possible. So stay tuned. The level of Keser, Keser means crown. Crown means like the king is crowned. It means a level of divinity, right? It's a metaphor when the king is crowned. It's a level of divinity that is encompassing and is beyond. It's beyond the person, right? The person's a person. You have your head and everything, and then you have a crown on top. That's beyond. So the mitzvahs, they come from this path that's beyond of love, nunis, whiteness, supreme consent. Why is it called whiteness? Because in that place, there's no room for severity. There's no room for a possibility of negativity. Right? So we kind of have a problem over here. It's a contradiction then. We just said mitzvahs come, the negative mitzvahs, they come from the severity of Zohar in the world of Atzilus, right? Holding back, refraining the light that it should not come into Klippa, into a negative place in this world. But the Zohar says that the mitzvahs come from Keser. So it seems to be and Keser is only kindness. There is no negativity. There is no force of Gevura there, in the internal aspect of Keser at least. Only Chesed. So what do we have here? We have 248 positive commandments. We say they come from the 10 spheres of Zohar. So we have a contradiction over here, seemingly. Actually, it's a multitude, because in the previous class we also spoke about the 248 commandments, that they come from the vessels of the 10 spheres of Zohar. And now we just learned that they come from the 5 attributes of kindness of Zohar. And then we have, as we said, supernal Keser, crown, which means a place where there is no severity at all. Okay, so where do mitzvahs come from? The explanation is as follows. All mitzvahs are ultimately to be drawn down the purpose of mitzvahs is to repair in the spiritual realm 248 organs of Zohar in the divine, and in us we do a mitzvah. It brings a completion to our soul that's made up of 248 components. That's why there's 248 commandments. Each mitzvah that we do is a repair of us, and not just a repair of us, but a repair of the divine. And how is this done? Because we're able to draw down the 5 attributes of kindness and the 5 attributes of severity, as they are rooted, though, in a place where there is an infinite light, where there is only but kindness. As we said, Keser, the internal aspect of the crown. So the root of the mitzvah is a place where God has just delight. God has delight. That's the source of it. A mitzvah is a delight for the divine. However, that's on that level of divinity. As it's drawn down by the act of doing a mitzvah, we actually bring a repairing to ourselves, as mentioned, and to the divine order of things. The crown, the Keser of Hashem, Atik, doesn't need any repair, any refinement. But as it comes down into respective mitzvahs, 613, we need to bring a refinement into that order of the divine, and into us. By the act of doing the mitzvah, we bring a refinement to us. So the capacity to be able to do that, because it comes from a place that's beyond refinement, but it draws down into a level of the divine, where through us doing the mitzvah, we bring refinement, not only to us, but to the heavenly sphere. So this is a very powerful idea. That this is the gist of it that we're speaking over here. You know, we understand that God gave us a mitzvah, and many people look at a mitzvah as just a cultural, activity. Put on your phylacteries, your tefillin, make a blessing on food, eat kosher, come to holiday practices, whether sitting in a sukkah, lulav and esrog, whether it's eating matzah on Passover and telling over the Haggadah. So these are all nice traditional activities, that keep us together and keep us affiliated and connected. And there's a truth to that. But here, what the Kabbalah is telling us is it's a much more deeper idea that the mitzvah is an expression of divine delight. But as it comes down to our world, the spiritual world, and our world literally down here, the mitzvah then takes on a purpose of refinement, repairing this world. So everybody's looking to make this world a better place. And the way we do it is through the mitzvah. And it's just the Kabbalistic expression or teaching of it. Powerful idea. We continue in the fourth essay. We explained where mitzvahs come from. They come from a divine delight, where in that divine delight there is no negativity at all, no severity, not even divine severity, which is not really negative. Shouldn't even say it's not even negative, but it's still severe. It's contracting. It's holding back. So that's the source of the mitzvah. But then the purpose of the mitzvah is in order to bring refinement, repairing in us individually. That's why there's 248 positive actions that we do, because we have 248 parts of the soul. But not only that, there's 248 parts of the divine order of things above that we also affect the divine. So what comes out is that the practical mitzvahs is the ultimate purpose of Seder Shtalshelus, the chain-like stages of progression of where God screens out his divine light in order that we have a physical world. Because then what we can do is take the sparks that are here in this world and bring refinement to it. And with this we can understand that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, why he wanted to go into the Holy Land. Because he knew that going into the Holy Land you do physical acts of mitzvahs, and that you can bring a refinement in the physical reality of this world. Therefore he wanted to go into the Holy Land. Now, we know about mitzvahs that they cannot be delegated to another if you need to fulfill that mitzvah, you can't delegate it. Right? If you can delegate it, so you can delegate it and you study Torah instead. But if you can't delegate it, then you must do it. So for example, praying to God, you can't delegate it because it's your mitzvah. Putting on tefillin, it's your mitzvah. Right? You can't and say, well, I'm just going to learn Torah, no, I'm going to delegate mitzvahs. No, you can't do that. Right? So you forgo Torah study in order to fulfill a mitzvah. And beyond a question that one forgoes prayer, that is, prayer is about the love and awe of God for the mitzvah. Why? Because in order to refine the sparks of holiness that are trapped in this physical world, you need to do a practical mitzvah with the physical elements of this world. That is the purpose of creation. So we see the power of the mitzvah. In addition, practical mitzvahs and their study, right, so you can know how to do the practical mitzvah, far transcend the intellect, meaning the intellectually generated love and awe of God that comes through prayer. Because that doesn't express itself in a physical manner, prayer, right? Prayer is with your mind, with your heart, right? With your mind understanding the greatness of God and being aware of your divine connection with God that leads you to a love and awe of God. But it doesn't take expression, prayer, in any physical way. Except that the heart feels something, right? As opposed to a mitzvah, right? So the ultimate purpose is to extract the sparks of holiness that are trapped within the material world and to elevate this world. But it's not just that we elevate this world, refine the world through a practical mitzvahs because they're done with the materiality of this world, but also because of our bond, the soul's bond with God, is also through a mitzvah, is great. The verse says that we should cleave to God through cleaving to his attributes. Meaning, when one acts in a kindly manner, for example, so they're cleaving to the supernal divine attribute of kindness. And you're one with God through that act of kindness. Now, when you're cleaving to God through the act of kindness, you're not cleaving to the essence of that divine attribute, but only to the externality of the existence of that supernal attribute. We learned this, if you recall, in letter 15, letter 15, that Avram Avinu said, I am but dust and ashes. So it was a sign of humility. But the interesting point of the humility that expressed was, he is the embodiment of kindness, but he understood that his kindness versus God's kindness is dust and ashes. Even though, a tree, for example, a beautiful fruit-bearing tree, when it gets burned, there's dust and ashes. So the essence of dust and ashes of the tree is the same thing as the tree, essentially. But in the end, it's incomparable. The tree versus the ashes that you get from the tree at the end, right? That's a metaphor to understand how incomparable Abraham's kindness was to God's kindness. So he understood that and therefore said, in a very real sense, that he's but dust and ashes. His kindness versus God's kindness, right? So that's when we act in a kind way. So we're united and bound with God, but not to the essence of the divine kindness, because that's way beyond. This is all the more true with regard to the infinite light of God, that no thought can apprehend God. We can only grasp the existence of God with our minds, but not the essence of God, right? What is the existence of God? He gives life. By giving us life, we sense his reality, his being, right? But not the core essence of him, we don't. And that's why we in prayer we say, holy, 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 kadosh, kadosh, kadosh is God. Meaning he's removed. He's removed from us. He's so removed. Holy means beyond, right? Beyond what we experience in our world. What do we experience in our world? Cause and effect. Everything is a cause and effect, right? You do something, that's the cause that creates an effect. Positive, negative, whatever, that's not the point. The point being that everything in our world is cause and effect, except for one thing, God. And the reason why everything in our world is cause and effect is everything comes from somewhere. So therefore there's a cause that caused it. That creates the effect. Except for one thing, God. So that's why the essence of God we will not be able to apprehend. Because there isn't a cause that caused him, that, therefore there'd be like a linkage in a chain going upwards till we can finally, oh, okay, I get him. No, beyond. That's why we say kadosh, 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 right? Even lofty souls of Atzilus that come from a world of emanation, like Moses and other great lofty souls, they're also unable to apprehend the essence of godliness. That's why, regarding Moshe, it says, you will see my hinder part, my backside, meaning the external, not the internal. You will see the fact of me, but not the essence of me. So what do we have? That this vision that the soul has, that it gazes upon godliness, without the benefit of the mitzvah, you only get the externality of God, but not the essence of God. In other words, let me bring a summation over here. When you do a mitzvah, there's the practical act of the mitzvah, right? The practical action. And then there's the cleaving that happens through it. The practical act, you're bringing a refinement in the material world over here, right? Which is the ultimate purpose of creation. So, and that's why the mitzvah is so important. At the same time, you're also having a bond with God, because you are acting in a kind way, and therefore you're being bound up to the kindness of God. But that being bound up with God in the cleaving of the soul is only, what we said, to the external aspect of the divine, right, as opposed to the essence of the divine. So in other words, the physical act, we actually connect to the essence of God. But the spiritual aspect of the mitzvah, which the soul is bound with God, we are bound up to the external of the divine, not the internal. Very fascinating. That means to say, like many people feel, why do I need to put on tefillin? I feel a bond with God. I feel a connection to him. So the answer is, this Kabbalistic teachings here tells us that your soul will cleave to God, but only to the external aspect of the divine, right? And that's like Abraham would say, I am dust and ashes, because his kindness is dust and ashes. And we're talking about a holy man that is an embodiment of kindness. And yet he can only cleave to the external aspect of the divine through his act of kindness. But when that act of kindness isn't just the soul's connection, but it's done because of the physical, practical act that you do, right? Like that act of kindness, you were charitable, you gave charity, or you went and did a physical action of something, and that brought out the kindness, then you are bound up to the essence of the divine. And you are refining this world and making this world a place of dwelling for the Almighty. All right, that was pretty lofty stuff. I hope that was something that I explained well that you got. As I mentioned, this last part of Tanya is amazing, but also challenging because of the difficulty of Kabbalistic teachings. Okay, do we have any questions? Thank you, Ryan, for sharing. A reminder, Rambam coming up. We have 6:30. We have Torah studies and TRC tonight. Davida. When Mashiach comes, will we see and grasp the true essence of Hashem? Yes. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. Oh, 1 second, Rachel. His study of Torah, refining of the inner person, and doing of the mitzvahs, the refining of the external, and doing both ability to unify and elevate the entire being. So, studying Torah brings the unity of the soul. Primarily it's of the soul, right? Bringing a bond, a deep connection of the soul to God. It's the greatest form of unity. Doing a mitzvah, we also are unified with God, but we're unified with our power of action. It's unified. It's not as a deep unity. It's like ink and paper come together as one, but then you have carved out, in a stone, letters that are one. It's a much deeper oneness. But doing the act of the mitzvah, you're bound up. The act of mitzvah, you change you reveal the sparks of godliness in this world, and you are bound up with the essence of Hashem too. Thank you for the question. Joseph, can prayer influence Hashem? Absolutely. You have to dig deep inside of yourself for that usually. But yeah. Elise, did I get it right? The practical physical action of the mitzvah plus the cleaving of the soul bound with the external aspects of God, because it binds us to the essence of God. So the act of the mitzvah binds us to the essence of God, and the cleaving to the external aspect. Yes. It's not the two equal. The two are different components, different parts. Thank you. Excellent. All right, folks. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad, Zohar and Kabbalah, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. A good vach, a good week, and join us. God bless you all.